Bit of a weird one. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be covering asset theory and market correlation. I'm going to be cutting in here a video from my personal swing trading masterclass. It's been so popular, it's been so highly demanded, and I think it's very, very critical for everybody to understand, even at a basic level. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be cutting that into here directly after this introduction, and you guys are going to be checking out correlation and asset selection, and we're going to be expanding on these principles so that I can wrap up a few extra points so that by the time we reach the end of it, you'll have some more practical principles to go off. Please wait around till after the lecture is finished so that I can move on to part 2. Talk to you soon.
Hello, welcome to Adam's Swing Trading Masterclass. This is unit number 3, coin selection, math versus stories. I've been looking forward to recording this one for a long time. I hope you guys enjoy this one. This may be the most important unit that we cover in the entire Swing Trading Masterclass. God, I'm looking forward to this. So, money is numbers. Math is the language of numbers. Therefore, to speak money, you must speak math. Now ask yourself, do you want to speak money? This is going to contextualize everything that we're looking at today because math is money, numbers. You're going to need to want to learn this stuff because you can't rely on narratives and stories forever like a goddamn caveman. We're intelligent investors, and I trust that if you guys come across something you don't understand, that you'll be fucked to literally learn the fucking maths because there's no other option. So what we're learning today, correlation, how everything is connected, and modern portfolio theory. We're going to look at what is the best altcoin. So, correlation first. As you may already be aware, within the cryptocurrency universe, Bitcoin is actually the slowest moving and the lowest returning cryptocurrency in the entire market during rapid pumps. For the novices, it's only logical that if you want to increase your returns, you'd start to look into them. So you start digging, excited by the prospect of an easy 10x, 1000%. So you do some surface level research and you come to me with questions like, hey Adam, thoughts on XYZ token? I heard it does this new thing that, but it has a better technology than this, and I'll clap back with something else, and you'll go, okay, I get it, but the project has support from this well-known coder or engineer or celebrity, blah, blah, blah. And you'll see me hitting you with this. Boom! Motherfucking correlation table. Let me hit you with this. Nothing matters except the data. This is a wake-up call. You've been lied to. You've been misled by the popular media to think that qualitative things matter. I want to remind you that nothing matters except math, which is the language of finance, and therefore it's what puts the money in your pocket. Today we're going to upgrade your reasoning. So, first of all, I just wanted to say to you guys that I do want to make the maximum amount of money possible. I'm autistic, not retarded. So, I do not care what XYZ token does. Your tokens may as well be called token 53 and token 54 to me. And we have no other data except their price. To me, they're all the same trashy mathematical problems waiting to be solved. And that is a problem of returns, correlation, and volatility that we can solve. So altcoin fact number 1. Fact, everything is correlated. Now, if everything is correlated, then there is no purpose in using more than one asset, unless you're employing a rebalancing strategy, which 99% of people are going to be too lazy to adhere to anyway. That includes me. Even if you did employ that strategy, risk-adjusted returns would be minimal. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to read this correlation table, because I've had a few people come to me and ask me how it works. Basically, correlation is a score that runs from +1 to -1. +1 meaning perfect correlation, where two assets move in perfect harmony together, in perfect sync, and they move in the same direction at all times. They can move at different magnitudes, but their direction is identical. If you have something that's -1, or completely uncorrelated, if this whole thing was red, then that would mean that every single altcoin moves in the opposite direction to Bitcoin at all times. And when Bitcoin goes up, the altcoins go down and vice versa. And this effect would swap over consistently. What you can see here, we'll focus on the bottom left-hand half for the moment. You can see here that the entire correlation table between all, not only Bitcoin and all these other altcoins that I have listed here, not only that, but they're also all correlated between each other to a very high degree. There's almost no scores in this table that are below 0.5. 0.5 being very strong correlation, anything above 0.5. You can see here that Bitcoin is very strongly correlated to everything. And as you can see as well, Ethereum is the one that is the strongest correlation to Bitcoin. We'll come back to that at another point, but I want you to take note of that. This correlation matrix is from August the 4th. I did check it today as well before I did this lecture. It's basically exactly the same. Everything's the same. You can see Litecoin here. I'm not going to ignore it. It is quite strongly correlated. We'll come to that later as well. But the Ethereum, again, today was the highest one on the table. On the top right-hand side of this correlation matrix, what you can see here are some lines that move above and below the midpoint of this box in here. What this signifies is the statistical significance of said correlation. So you can see that the statistical significance of all of these different correlations is quite high, which means the reliability of the correlations are quite strong. You can see here that Ethereum, for example, is squeezed right up against the top edge of the box here, above the midway point, which means that it's a very significant correlation. If this was high, if we had a high number, 0.85, and the significance was below the midway line, it was down here, that would be a clear indication that we can't take this number seriously, and that none of these correlations are very strong or persistent or reliable. You can see here, though, that the entire right-hand side of the table of the matrix is full of very significant readings. This screams to me highly correlated market. This is a matrix that I have been following for a long time, for years, and I have never seen the market really become very uncorrelated, except for maybe in speculative peaks. It's super, super rare to have the entire market become uncorrelated at any point in time. 99% of the time, it's going to be highly correlated. So, should be number 2. Moving on to modern portfolio theory. Altcoin fact number 2. Searching for alts is useless. Now, I'm not in it for the tech or the story. I have no morals. I'm here to make money. You should be too. Using financial mathematics, we can literally calculate the single best altcoin to invest in, since the entire market is correlated. No one else on the planet will ever teach you what I'm about to teach you, because everyone's stupid. So, we're going to spend a bit of time on this one. This is modern portfolio theory. This is essentially the holy grail of asset selection. And we're going to move through it one step at a time. You can see that on the two axes, we have expected return and we have standard deviation. Standard deviation, for those who do not know what this is, means variability in the price returns. Therefore, if you have a high standard deviation, there's a lot of variability in the price. If you have a low standard deviation, there is not much variability in price. The holy grail of any asset would be to have the maximum amount of return for the minimum amount of variation. Variation in returns is risk in financial terms. So what we want is something that's all the way over here and all the way up here. We want something up here. This would be the ultimate asset. You would receive insane returns with no risk. Obviously, the market doesn't work like this. Often we receive very low returns and very high risks in things that are gambles. Now, as you can see, we have approximated, I've just thrown these in here approximately. I can hear people screeching in the general chat already. I've just placed some random assets on this chart here to show you approximately where I believe certain assets to lie. We have the largest of the large caps, which have very low standard deviation, but also the expected return isn't super high. And you can see that we have a general drift up here. General drift up to represent that even though you're taking on higher risk as you go further out to the right-hand side, you're also taking on higher expected returns. As of the time of recording this video, somebody paid $100,000 for a rock as an NFT on the Ethereum blockchain. Insane. And also super speculative. So what we can see here is that we have all the individual assets. What we can do is we can actually combine these different assets into portfolios, and as we combine them, some portfolios will exist down here in the cloud of different assets, but sometimes when we combine these assets together, they actually work better together, and they work synergistically to actually increase returns and reduce risk at the same time. If you perform this experiment and you take all the different cryptocurrencies that you can possibly buy and you put them into a supercomputer and crunch all the different numbers and you run a whole bunch of different simulations, you'll end up with, thousands and thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of different portfolios. And what you'll find is they form a cluster against this thing here called the efficient frontier that no combination of assets can exist beyond. It is called the frontier because nothing exists outside here. Despite the crunching of all the different assets in portfolios, it doesn't matter how many experiments you run, nothing can ever go past the efficient frontier. If you were to have a portfolio, you would want a portfolio on the efficient frontier so you could select from the optimal returns for any given measure of risk. So, that is the first step of modern portfolio theory, which is to say that what you want to do is you want to combine assets to form a portfolio so that you don't want to be taking on unnecessary amounts of risk. But remember that the entire market is correlated. So there's very little added benefit in taking additional assets into a portfolio and mixing them together. Really, it would be more effort than it's worth. So what you want to do, Jesus Christ, what you want to do is you want to try and find the asset that's closest to the efficient frontier, or the assets that are closest to the efficient frontier. If you want to take on more return, you may want to take on some Cardano over here and be like, well, no asset exists over here, but ADA is the closest one to the efficient frontier, so I want to buy this one. Or maybe NFTs are the closest to the efficient frontier over here, and there's no point in combining any other assets, so you'd select that one. But what we want to introduce here is the risk-free rate. This is the interest rate that you borrow money at or loan money at. This is essentially the cash rate. So what we do is say, if this is 1% over here, what we do is we take a line and we move it out until it's tangential to the efficient frontier. This is called the capital asset line, and it rests against the point on the efficient frontier where you have the optimal portfolio, the tangency portfolio. This portfolio of assets, whatever their combination may be, has the highest Sharpe ratio of any combination of assets along the efficient frontier at any point. What this also means is that if you find the portfolio that rests at the tangent of the capital asset line and the efficient frontier, what you can do is you can actually borrow money at the risk-free rate and leverage up the optimal portfolio to infinity, which would be the rational choice. Also, you can go the other way and you can actually hold less of the optimal portfolio and more cash. And you can see here that as you're moving along this line, you're actually receiving a portfolio risk and return profile that exists beyond the efficient frontier. Okay? So you've managed to find a way of combining leverage or cash to get a portfolio that's more efficient than the efficient combination of assets that the supercomputer crunched. Now you might be asking yourself, Adam, I don't understand. What the fuck is a Sharpe ratio? Well, I'm about to tell you. The tangential portfolio has the highest Sharpe ratio, and it's calculated from this formula here. It's essentially returns minus the cash rate over the variability. You want the maximum amount of returns for the minimum amount of variability possible. Pop quiz. out of these two different sets of assets, which ones do you think would have the highest Sharpe ratios? Would it be the one you see on this one? These are two great examples. These two assets over this time horizon had the same performance, but one reached that same level of performance with less variability than the other one. The other one had to go through a whole lot more variability to receive that same amount of performance. Therefore, it was IEF, it was bonds in this example that have the highest Sharpe ratio between stocks and bonds. That's an easy enough one. And on this one over here, we have two different strategies, strategy 1 and strategy 2. You can see that one returned much higher than the other one, despite them both having approximately the same amount of variation, risk or variability in the price returns. So if you were to pump that through this one, we would have an asset or a strategy, whatever the fuck it is. It has the maximum amount of return for the same amount of risk or variability. So it is the portfolio or strategy with the highest Sharpe ratio. You can see that when selecting between assets or portfolios or strategies, the strategy with the highest Sharpe ratio is the one you want to go for. No rational investor would willingly choose something that performs worse. So what I'm going to do right now is show you some Sharpe ratios on TradingView. We're going to go between some assets and we're going to have a look. So I've got it all set up here, ready to go. I want you to pay careful attention to these two numbers here. Pick one. I don't care which one it is. I prefer the purple one because it's the longest run Sharpe ratio of these different assets. We have Bitcoin first up, 2.6. Make a mental note of that. I'm going to go through a few different ones here, see if we can get some price history. Not enough price history. I'm going to go AVE, 2.9. Not enough price history. 2.9. Some altcoin trash. 2.5. Zcash. 2.2. Link. Not enough price history. 1.3. It's still quite low on the high frequency one. 1.6. Litecoin. BNB. 2.7. Ripple. 1.6. Doge. 2.8. Uniswap. Not enough price history. Decred. 1.5. ICX. 2.5. 2.2. Verge. 2.1. Shitcoin. XRX 2.2, 2.4, whatever, 1.4, and then we choose Ethereum. Oh look, 3.1. Isn't that funny? Out of all the different cryptocurrencies, Ethereum has the highest Sharpe ratio, even higher than Bitcoin itself. So you tell me now, where does Ethereum lie on the efficient frontier? Comes obvious now, doesn't it? So, the only logical conclusion. Correlation renders diversification in the cryptocurrency market mostly useless. In a competitive market, a rational investor will only hold the optimal portfolio. Because correlation in the cryptocurrency market is so high, this statement can be modified. In a competitive, highly correlated cryptocurrency market, a rational investor will only hold the optimal asset. Since Ethereum displays not only the highest correlation to Bitcoin, which gives us a high signal for our fundamental analysis, but also the highest Sharpe ratio and includes supercycle dynamics, which I've explained in detail in the long-term channel, it is the optimal asset. Now I can see people in the fucking chat already losing their goddamn minds. I can feel it coming through the internet right now. I swear to God, I don't give a shit about what you think about any other altcoins. I don't care about your stories. I don't care about your feelings. Now, that being said, I do recognize that there are variables in place for marketing, for hype, things that can cause altcoins to outperform over short periods of time. But in case you've forgotten, I want to bring it back to this statement that underpins everything that I do. It's not just about getting rich. It's about getting rich for sure. If I cannot model what I'm doing, it becomes a gamble. I am not in this game to gamble. You guys got to understand, I've made all this money because I've engineered out all of the luck out of my process. It's about making decisions that make sense. I can't give it to you any clearer than this.
Okay, guys, welcome back. Asset Theory and Market Correlation Part 2. Hope you enjoyed that previous lecture, but what we're going to be doing is we're actually going to be immediately expanding on that so that I can cover some more points that I believe need to be looked at. We're going to be expanding on this and reinforcing some extra knowledge here. So in the comprehensive video that we just saw, you discovered correlation and asset analysis and Ethereum as the optimal asset at the time of recording. Yes, it was a bit complex, but we need to keep digging deeper. Side note, I know a lot of people want to try and replicate the Sharpe ratio analysis in TradingView. Please ensure the parameters are set to 365 days and the interest rate is as close to zero as possible. Just put a whole bunch of zeros in front of it and it'll be accurate. So, to make sure it's perfectly clear, anything in the top 1,000 market cap rankings are basically just leveraged Bitcoin position with increasing risk the further down you go. If you select BNB, for example, I see it as just BTC with 1.5 times leverage. XRP, it's BTC with 1.6 times leverage. DOT, BTC with 1.7 times leverage. CRO, ADA, Link, XLM, Uni, EOS. Can you see what I'm getting at here? Yes. Stop what you're doing. It's highly unlikely you'll catch an uncorrelated pump by speculating on these instead of Bitcoin or Ethereum, so don't even try. Most importantly, don't forget about the Sharpe ratio. The returns decrease in quality the smaller the size of the token. Practically, this means you'd be better off gently leveraging Ethereum by 1.2x rather than by investing in BNB, for example, in the absence of any useful insider information. No, this isn't a recommendation to go leveraging ETH as soon as this presentation is finished. I'm just saying your investing methodology is illogical if you hold anything other than ETH as your core holding. So, that after correlation breaks down, we're going to be exploring where correlation breaks down here. Clearly, we want to hold more tokens because diversification gives added benefits. But if everything is correlated, where do we get the diversification? Well, the very smallest tokens, and I'm talking here about the ones that are under 1,000 market cap, are often uncorrelated to the market and more closely follow their own fundamentals, news releases, and hype cycles and things like this. But it's only because they're so small that they can be moved by individual whales rather than the entire market sentiment of the entire planet, for example. They also have higher upside, these small cap coins, which also makes them a little bit more attractive, of course. When considering these points, it's obvious some small tokens are a beneficial addition to the portfolio. So what does the ideal portfolio look like? If we're having a buy and hold barbell strategy, we're going to be following the traditional pathway, which is 90% large cap tokens, Ethereum and BTC, and 10% small caps, which are small enough to be uncorrelated to the large caps. As we have covered before, you don't want to have too many tokens in this 10%. There's no real added benefit to having more than just a couple, say 2 to 4 different tokens. Rebalance the portfolio from the 10% back into the 90% when you get a small cap pump. Try and avoid rebalancing from the 90 into the 10, as the risky side of the barbell should save itself under periods of duress and high risk. Otherwise, it might act as a black hole for your money if you have a set of losing small caps. So as you can see here over on the right hand side, we've got something that I would consider to be, at the time of recording, a pretty decent portfolio setup for somebody who is conservative, but also looking to follow the barbell ideology to the letter, essentially. So more Ethereum, a bit of Bitcoin, so that we can get a little bit of diversification in there. Not much. You'd be rebalancing these on the monthly, and then 10% into some of these small caps here. And you can see they're equally distributed because we don't know which one of them will necessarily pump. And as these grow over time, Radar, for example, it might go to 6%, or maybe it'll go up a whole bunch and it'll end up being 20% of the portfolio. At a point like that, you're going to say to yourself, okay, so now this part of the portfolio is like 26, 27%. It's really gone completely out of whack here. And then you can look into different strategies for whether you're going to keep that in there or rebalance. That's not the subject of this video, but you'd probably be looking to rebalance from here into there. If all of these go down to zero or close to zero and they all end up at 1% each, you don't start taking huge amounts of money from in here and placing it into the risky side of the barbell. because they might genuinely be garbage and they'll just keep losing you money. So make sure the money flows from the small caps into the large caps as they change in size if they go up, and try and avoid going from large to small if these end up being trash. Moving on. So what does the ideal portfolio look like if we're running a modified active management barbell strategy? This is more advanced. This is kind of along the lines of somebody who's really active, who's doing crypto as their full-time job, essentially. You'd have 90% in your large cap strategy, which would be conservative and risk minimizing, not profit maximizing. So you'd be using the large caps for this one as well. This should basically be drawdown control. Obviously, there's strategies in Hustle's University for this, but yeah, 10% of small cap tokens for active flipping and active speculative trading. Ultimately, my recommendation would be you should start smaller in size than this because you're unlikely to be profitable from the very start. Suggest 1% of the entire portfolio and then work your way up to the 10% as you become more profitable over time. Again, rebalance portfolio from the 10 to the 90 as your speculative account grows. Try to avoid rebalancing from the 90 to the 10 as the risky side of the barbell should always be saving itself. Otherwise, it'll act as a black hole for the money if you have a losing strategy. So in conclusion, a portfolio split of 90-10 safe risky is an ideal portfolio. As we've covered in the barbell video, correlation makes diversification mostly useless. Ethereum is an optimal asset at the time of recording. The 90% should be populated with Ethereum and Bitcoin positions or strategies that you could describe as high quality. The 10% should be populated with only a few very small, very high quality tokens. For this, I recommend following small cap calls from Luke, Sillard, and Daniel. All right, that's it for the moment. Thank you very much, guys. Talk to you soon.